everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing guests who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Before I introduce today's show, I just want to let you know that my current book, the 10th anniversary edition of Unprocessed, is on sale on Amazon. And if you buy it and send your receipt to Chef AJ Bonus at yahoo.com, we will send you some amazing bonuses, including an almost 2-hour class that I actually sell for $25 with 5 decadent and dairy-free dessert recipes that are going to be in my next book. So without further ado, this is the last Thursday of the month, which means it's time for Vegan Conversations with Robert Cheeke. His guest is somebody that I've been wanting to get on the show for some time. I actually communicated with her and it just never happened. So I'm so happy it's happening today. Please welcome Robert Cheeke.
Thank you so much, Chef AJ. I really appreciate it. I am tuning in live from downtown Seattle, where I am here for the grand opening of Next Level Burger. So if anybody is here in Seattle tuning in, please come see me on Saturday at the grand opening in Ballard area of Seattle. But let's get right to the reason for today's show, the wonderful guest that we have, which is Natalie Matthews, who is an IFBB pro bikini athlete. She'll explain what that is. She's also known as the Fit Vegan Chef and has a new ebook out, which we're going to talk about. And she just got back from Washington, D.C., where she was on tour when I was in her town in Southern California and missed her last weekend. Natalie Matthews, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. So you are tough to track down with all the stuff that you have going on. You're traveling. You competed for years at a very, very high level, the IFBB pro level. But Natalie, as you know, there are 99% of viewers have no idea what IFBB means. And what I'm going to say right now for anyone listening, Natalie is at the level of in her category bikini, which is the toughest division of all the bodybuilding and fitness divisions. It's just the most competitive. She's at the level of the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA, the NHL. So think of it in those terms. But Natalie, what does IFBB Pro mean to you?
Oh, it's such a prestigious title to have. It's so hard to get. And the IFBB is the most competitive federation in the world. So I knew that when I started competing, I wanted to reach for this goal. I didn't expect to, receive it this quick, but I'm so honored to just be a representative of vegan bodybuilding in this prestigious stage. So I'm really excited about it.
And there aren't that many. There are a few others, of course. I think some names, Nimai Delgado, Tori Washington, some names that people might know, but there's not that many because it's the WNBA or the NBA of professional bodybuilding. I never even got close to it for perspective for everyone listening. I actually competed as an amateur. I got nowhere near the IFBB. But Natalie, you didn't start there. You were a professional athlete before. We're going to hear your vegan story in a moment, but take us back because you're maybe the first guest I've talked to who's been a professional athlete in 2 sports. So walk us back down that memory lane and tell us how this fitness journey got started.
Yeah, so I was a competitive surfer for a very long time. I started at a very young age and I grew up in Puerto Rico. So it's like the mecca of surfing in the Caribbean. And I got to do that amazing sport that connects us to nature for many, many years. And my vegan journey started kind of together once I met my husband, basically. So George and I went through our journey together because he was experiencing just some really terrible sinuses infections and just not feeling his best. And he's a helicopter pilot for the Coast Guard. I call him my real life hero. And he already have undergone surgery for this, and they were actually considering doing another surgery again. And the doctor was like, well, before we get so invasive again, because if something doesn't go wrong, you're just going to get kicked out. Let's try removing dairy from your diet. And at that time, I was doing surfing. I was surfing about 5 hours a day. I was very active, but my diet was very poor. I was a vegetarian at that time, but I wasn't a good one. I just wasn't educated, and I didn't know much about the vegan world at all. That word did not exist in Puerto Rico back then. Nobody knew about it. I was already weird for being vegetarian. And, I think removing dairy was the last thing that we needed to do in order to go vegan. So when George presented this to me, I was like, oh my gosh, no, like, I'm already that weird person. How weird can I get, But that was just fear of not knowing, And we found you, Robert. So we found you as a great source of information. And we just dove into this vegan world. And George no longer needed the surgery after he went vegan. He definitely convinced me. And then I jumped on the vegan train. And we've been vegan for over 10 years now, which is crazy to even think about. But my performance as an athlete improved a lot. I used to be a very tired person, and my training regimen back then was really hard. I feel like both sports are hard in their own way, but I would surf for 5 hours and then take a nap and then start working out in order to build my body to take the pounding of the waves and all of that. So I noticed that I was always constantly tired in between, and for good reason. But once I went vegan, like within the year, like people started noticing, like, why can you go for longer? Like, why are you recovering this quick? I can't believe you're back out there again. So it was, a no-brainer for me. And then I fell down the rabbit hole of the ethical side of things, learned about that, and that kept me vegan forever. Like, there's no turning back now.
Yeah, you mentioned fatigue from surfing for 5 hours. I think anybody would be tired. If I surf for 5 minutes, I would be like gasping for air and all of that. So that's obviously understandable. But one thing I do hear all the time is that people do have an improved performance from a plant-based diet. I mean, I wrote a book about that, The Plant-Based Athlete. You're in that book. We talk about that aspect, that there's this benefit that people seem to experience across the board when they're new to veganism, or they've been doing it for a while. They're professional athletes, they're very high level Olympic athletes. They experience this faster recovery, this decrease in inflammation, this sometimes increase in energy, like you were talking about. Can you speak to some of the foods that might do that? I mean, you're also a chef. We'll talk about that in a moment. You also had your chef journey. But what about, like, what specifically do you think changed nutritionally? Like, why now better recovery? Why now more energy? Why now building more muscle? You're a lot more muscular than when you were a surfer. And as you said, you accelerated faster than you thought, and faster than probably most people thought, to the highest level of bodybuilding. So what's going on nutritionally there?
Well, I think educating myself had a lot to do with it. I feel like a lot of people, when they transition to a vegan lifestyle, they just don't know how to go about it. And consuming whole food plant-based foods it's the best way to go. But sometimes when you're transitioning from a standard American diet, or even me, a poor vegetarian diet, you might add those plant foods and be a lot fuller, eating a lot less and consuming less calories. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. They just undereat without realizing it and not getting the full benefits of it. So once I understood that part, and I downloaded, I remember, I think back then it was Chronometer. Now I use MyFitnessPal, but I downloaded Chronometer and I started understanding what I put into my foods, and the foods, so how much calories did they have? What was their macro breakdown? And it was just so eye-opening, because we just don't know. We don't get this information at school, so knowing definitely helped a lot. And whenever I would see, like, oh, she's not consuming enough to meet her requirements, then I just started eating more and making sure that I was fueling myself properly. That was huge for me. So I've been tracking since I started this whole journey, which actually helped me a lot in bodybuilding, because tracking is literally a part of this sport in bodybuilding. And I feel like I did excel quickly, and it was because I did have that foundation of surfing. Like, when you are a surfer, I don't know if you've seen a surfer walking around, they just have naturally this amazing back V taper to their bodies, and it's because of all the swimming and arching their backs and all of that. So like, the back is naturally width, the shoulders are big and broad, and I think transitioning from surfing to bodybuilding was just kind of like meant for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was born for this, because it's literally the sport that was made for me.
Yeah, because wasn't it George who was into the fitness first?
Yeah.
Like, he got into that, and you were kind of, I remember seeing you at some events. We met, I think, out in Florida at a tour that I was doing years ago. And I remember George was like, he had that bug to compete. Of course, I just saw George last week. It was fantastic seeing him. Love that guy. And he competed with the Plant Built team at Mr. America, and you were there to, cheer him on and all that. That was really exciting. Yeah. But you got into the sport. You accelerated fast. You turned pro. Can you walk us through what a typical day of eating is like for a professional bikini athlete? I mean, you must train quite a bit. I know I've been in the gym with you a number of times in a bunch of different cities. We used to tour together a bit back in the day with Vegan Strong. But what does it look like? Kind of like a morning till night. I imagine you meal prep or you plan, or at a professional level, diet is part of the sport, right?
Yeah, it is. It comes hand in hand. People are like, can you have one without the other? And I'm like, absolutely not. That's right. The weird thing about bodybuilding is like, everything that you put into your body, counting it down to like the gram of like a sauce, everything matters. So there's no real off season. I know we call it that we go into an off season, but it's no real off season because you're always having to be on point. But a typical day for me, it might sound repetitive for a lot of people. And if you guys see my full days of eating, which I'm kind of known for, and that's how I'm able to like educate people on, okay, this is how you can meet your protein on a vegan diet. And I feel like it's a very helpful concept for people. It might look very different, but it's the same food staples. I just make it look different, and I prepare foods in different ways. Like there's so many things that you could do with oatmeal. You could have it like hundreds of different ways. It's crazy. So for me, for breakfast right now, I am in competition prep. I just started 4 weeks ago, actually. So right now I'm in the mood for a lot of cream of rice in the morning, which is just ground up rice, and you heat it up and eat it kind of like it's like oatmeal, but rice basically. And I'll have it with fruit and a side of protein coffee. And that's just coffee, 2 shots of espresso, a little bit of cashew milk and protein powder. And I'll have that. And that's literally my pre-workout meal, because I like to train early. I'm an early bird. I always have been, probably because of surfing. And so that's breakfast / pre-workout meal. It's very balanced. It has a decent amount of carbohydrates because I want to be fuel for my workouts. And then afterwards, depending how long my workout session is, sometimes it could be 1.5 hours, sometimes it could be 2 hours. I'll go and have lunch afterwards. And that meal might look like a macro bowl. It could be my lupini bean seitan that I have a lot constantly every single day, some rice, and some type of vegetable. I like to rotate my veggies a lot. So depending on the season, I'll have, something different. So right now, my favorites are asparagus and spinach and zucchini. But, during the fall, I might pick something that's more in season. And I'll have a fat, not too much because it's a post-workout meal. So I'll have a little bit of avocado or something like that, or maybe like a little bit of nuts and seeds on the side. And for between lunch and dinner, I'll have 2 snacks, sometimes like a protein bar or just like a high protein vegan muffin, again, that I make with oatmeal, basically, and Vital Wheat gluten. And then I'll have another snack. This one, sometimes I'll have like some fruit with a side of protein. And for dinner, I'll have another macro bowl. But the difference is because I had rice at lunch, I'll probably have potatoes for dinner. And because I had seitan, I'll have some tofu. And then for veggie, I'll pick one of those 3 veggies that I mentioned. And here's where I kind of go all out with my fats, and I'll have like a fatty dressing or more avocado, depending what I'm craving for. But I like to switch things up with the sauces. So if I had if I added to that macro bowl some seaweed, for example, and miso sauce or something like that, and I have an Asian inspired sushi bowl, then maybe tomorrow I'll just switch out to a like salsa and Mexican seasonings and things like that and have a taco bowl. So I have a lot of fun with it. Even though it's very repetitive, I switch things out just to, you know, get variety in my diet, not create any deficiencies or anything like that. So that's kind of like a typical full day of eating. And sometimes if I have the extra macros, I'll finish off with like protein ice cream. I have a Ninja Creamy now, which I'm obsessed with. So it's been a game changer. I can have dessert and it's amazing.
Well, Natalie, I think you made up a good point there that I think it's okay to be consistent with your meal plan. I know you mentioned sometime you mentioned almost like apologetically, like, yeah, I know it sounds kind of the same, but Chef AJ, who hosts this show, eats sweet potatoes, I think, or Japanese potatoes every single day and has for years. I have my staples that I might eat something every single day because it builds consistent habits. It becomes the foundation of our diet. I think sometimes people think that with a plant-based diet, it has to be just super varied every single day and all of that. But when you're doing something like meal prep, for those of us who are athletes or even parents or preparing meals for a family, you're likely going to have leftovers or the same thing for 2 or 3 or 4 meals naturally, because it makes more sense to batch prepare a lot of things, like make batch quantities. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's okay for people to do that. And I want people to know that they have, not they need permission, but they have the comfort in knowing that, yeah, you can eat a lot of the same things on a regular basis, as long as they're really good things. You mentioned a lot of, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, like, just finding staples that you enjoy. And I feel like that's why you and I and Chef AJ are able to enjoy this lifestyle, because we have found staples that we enjoy and truly enjoy, and we can have them every single day. But also being mindful of, yeah, maybe rotating those sources so you don't miss out on any vitamins and key nutrients in your diet.
Right. Or like you said, Natalie, the variation of oatmeal. I
Yeah.
mean, you can just have oatmeal, or you can have oatmeal with berries and walnuts or cinnamon or nut butter or chia seeds or hemp seeds or other types of fruit, or overnight oats or oatmeal cookies or oatmeal, breakfast bars. Like there's a lot to do with a foundational food. Just like I'm sure Chef AJ might not eat, potatoes the same way every single day. There's lots of ways to enjoy one of the world's greatest foods. You also mentioned a lot of whole foods in there. And I know there's people, especially on Chef AJ's channel, that want to know how you feel about, added sugar, oil, salt, fats, things like that. And if those are used commonly, if they're used sparingly, if they're used to flavor, if they're used on days you do extra cardio and burn more calories. Can you speak to some of that? You obviously mentioned a lot of whole foods, but you're a chef also, and you make, flavorful and decadent food for yourself and others. So speak to that for a moment.
Absolutely. So I'm a big believer of balance is key. And especially like in the bodybuilding world, that we learn how to exclude so many things. I like abundance, I like variety, and I also like to enjoy a donut on occasion. So I don't have problems doing that, but I don't do it every single day. I do it on special occasions, and I don't say, no, you can't have that, because then it's just going to make me want to crave it even more. So I do enjoy it like on occasion. And with oils, I don't actually use that many oils. And I think it's because I just don't care for it too much. I use the spray oil just to avoid my veggies from sticking, or to put it like on the air fryer and getting that like crispiness on the tofu and vegetables. But I don't use it that much unless I am like, doing a reverse diet. This is when we're slowly increasing calories over time. And we do this after a contest prep. When you've been extreme dieting for so long, your body just can't stay there anymore. So you start increasing calories. And sometimes your metabolism just ramps up in this process, and adding so much food sometimes when your body's just not ready for it can be a little bit painful on the gut. So during this process, sometimes I'll use like coconut oil. If I'm just like food volume is so high, I'll just use things like that to facilitate that process. But I don't know about you, I'd rather have an avocado, or I'd rather have like a bunch of nuts and seeds. To me, that is like, it's amazing.
Yeah, I just traveled yesterday. I was flying, not a very long flight, Denver to Seattle, but I didn't plan or prepare a lot of whole food snacks. And so I had things like bars and fruit chews, and I just was like kind of like feeling sick by the time I got here. And then I was visiting bookstore to bookstore. Then I'm like, oh, most of the places for dinner are closed now. And there seems to be a difference when you kind of cut corners. And I don't want to say that in a negative way necessarily, but when you settle for something that's ultra processed, added with lots of sugar and oil and salt and chocolate and all the things they put in these things, like and they're totally vegan, these vegan bars and snacks, it makes for a little bit of a difficult daily nutritional intake. Luckily, I've got a gym here at the hotel and a grocery store nearby. But how do you prepare for travel? So you compete around the country. I think one time you competed, weren't you one place away from someone who like won the Olympia one year? Weren't you fourth and she was third or something? Like you were like right behind the very best in the world, like out in Kansas or somewhere?
Yeah, she won it 3 times. She's 3-time Miss Bikini Olympia. It was crazy. That was my best placing. And as a pro and being next to such a prestigious woman, which is Ashley Kaltwasser, like it was such an honor, and people were so excited for me. Like it was such an unbelievable experience. I feel like when I win something, like the whole vegan community wins and they just rally for me is so cool. But traveling all over the country and competing is very hard, just because it's hard on the body, especially when you're in such a depleted state. And planning is key because like you said, then you just rely on these ultra processed foods or convenient foods that are easy to grab, and they're so tempting because they taste amazing. So you're just like, this is all I have, so let me go for it. And you don't feel your best, like you said. So they're okay to have here and there, but I wouldn't make that the majority of anybody's diet. But planning is such key. So before like a competition, I always try, if I can, leave a couple, like 3 to 4 days before a competition, just because I like my body to acclimate and just get some training sessions in the actual place. So I make sure to call ahead my hotel and make sure that I have either a microwave or a fridge, and if I know that the area doesn't have any, I'll try my best to get an Airbnb just so I can prepare my foods. And if that's not the case, I'll prepare everything right before I leave. And that can be such a huge task, but something that has to be done in order for me to present my best on stage. So I'll take like a whole day and I'll just meal prep everything that I'm going to eat while I am gone during that competition week. So it's a lot of planning and a lot of like, plugging into my fitness pal. I have spreadsheets and things like that just to make sure that I don't forget anything and the excitement of the competition week doesn't get to me. So sometimes I'll even have like alarms to remind me like, okay, you need to be here for hair and makeup. You need to be here for check-ins. You need to eat now. So I have timers throughout that whole week because it's a lot.
Yeah. And for anyone listening, I want to make sure there's a clear distinction. You all know, I want to plant this flag here, that there's a difference between eating healthy and like eating to be one of the best in the world at your sport. Like if you're eating healthy, you don't need to track everything and have spreadsheets and have timers and all that. But because bodybuilding and bikini and fitness and figure and these subjective sports that are based on your physique, your nutrition is a massive part of that. Like that will literally make or break your success. And as Natalie said, your success in that area could do so much for a movement. I mean, that's the only reason I'm relevant to any degree, was because I was a vegan bodybuilder 20 years ago and helped put it on the map. And that made other people believe that they could do it too. And that made a difference. Just like Natalie, one of the top vegan IFBB pros in the world, also represents the movement. And so having these spreadsheets, the dedication, the planning ahead, makes a difference. And so I always make sure I clarify that. Like when I give my talks too, Natalie, when I'm on tour speaking in front of audiences that are kind of like Chef AJ audiences or Esselstyn or Campbell, and I'm talking about, tracking my stuff. And I'm like, hey, that's when I'm like trying to be in the best shape of my life. When I'm just living my normal plant-based vegan lifestyle, yeah, I'm not tracking anything. But the fact that you do clearly contributed to you being one of the best in the world. So let's talk about what it takes to train to be one of the best in the world. So you walked us through your diet and all that. What is not a typical day, but maybe an overview of a week, because you're training different muscle groups each day. What does a week look like in the gym in kind of a summary?
So right now it actually looks very different than when it did back when I first started, because when you're starting out in a bodybuilding journey, you're just getting the foundations in, you're just wanting to put on muscle everywhere. So lots of compound, lots of your squats, your deadlifts, pull-ups, things like that were on constant repeat, kind of like your boring workouts, let's just say. But they were really exciting for me because I love the hybrids of like powerlifting with bodybuilding. I love seeing how strong I can get. So that was my favorite part. But now, because I have all this muscle now and I've taken proper off seasons to build my body and, grow into the division, because the division has evolved so much throughout the years, I have to keep up with the trends of the division. So it's important to know, and I'll mention this disclaimer too, I am training to fit a category. I'm not training how I like to train. Just make that distinction. Because if I would like to train, I would continue doing those workouts that I used to do before. But now, because I had so much muscle, now we're just kind of think bodybuilding as a art form. You're literally sculpting your body to fit this criteria. So I am training a lot of glutes and shoulders, just because that's what the bikini division really focuses on. So on Mondays, I go in and do a long leg glute focus day. And this day I has a little bit of touches off the quad, but not too much. My quads have developed quite a bit. And if I continue growing them, I'll outgrow the division in that sense. So we're keeping the quads where they are and trying to make sure that my glutes catch up to them. So with bikini, it's all about balance and symmetry from bottom to the top. So nothing can really stand out. You can't be looking at that girl and be like, oh, she has great shoulders, because then that means that she's not really balanced. You want everything to look amazing from top to bottom. So then on Tuesdays, I'll do back, shoulders, and a little bit of biceps and triceps. You still want to train those other muscles that we're not really being judged on, but you still want the shape and the full muscle bellies on stage. You want that healthy appearance on stage. So training everything a little bit makes sense. So then on Wednesday, I go back in for glutes, but this time we're training the upper glute, which is an area that I neglected for a lot of years, but it's what gives an appearance of just a really round glute from the side profile and the back as well. Then on Thursdays, lots of shoulders again, a little bit of back. And then Friday I take off, and then Saturday I do glutes and shoulder. So so it's very repetitive and kind of like a traditional bikini split, but no longer a crazy bodybuilding split like I used to do before, because I'm not in that stage anymore. I don't need to do that anymore. I'm now in the bikini sculpting stage, let's just say that. So I'm really excited to bring an improved physique to this year, and because I've taken 2 years to build, and hopefully be on that top call out again.
Yeah, Natalie, that's really interesting. You made the observation that you're training because of a category requirement, not that you'd like to. And it reminded me, I didn't think about it a whole lot, or I've thought of it before, but not much lately, that when I was bodybuilding 15, 20 years ago, it was kind of the same thing for me, that I had to eat a different way than I wanted to, because I had to build the right kind of muscle. I had to repair muscle tissue and grow in certain ways. And I grew pretty fast too. I mean, I don't know, 28 pounds I added in 10 months. It's part of my story, and I grew pretty quickly and became a competitive bodybuilder, but I had to do things that I didn't want to do either, like that the sport kind of required. So how do you deal with that as far as like finding the motivation to be like, what was this, my third or fourth day of training glutes this week that you just described? Or like, my shoulders, I'm literally carrying the weight of it on my shoulders. Like I'm tired. But I assume there's a payoff, right? You have basically, if I understand it, you've kind of built a career. I mean, a living and all this kind of stuff. You represent a bunch of different brands. You have lots of followers. You've got an ebook. You fly out to DC and coach other people and train people on how to do what you do. I mean, you've built a career out of this by having, I think, to train a certain way, even if maybe you wouldn't want to. So talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, well, I love a challenge, and even though it's not the ideal way that I would like to train, I still fell in love with training this way because, the gym is kind of like my meditation state. I love going into the gym, even if I'm doing glutes and shoulders every day, even if I'm not hitting the compounds that I would like to hit, I find a lot of joy in being there and doing what I love to do and doing all the other fun things like, traveling and, educating others and things like that. So I find a lot of joy in it. And I've slowly learned to adapt really quickly. That's the thing with bodybuilding. You have to adapt to like the current criteria. So just finding little things like, okay, well, if I can't do the big movements, like, let me just get the best hip thrust PR, so I'll get excited just hitting those other PRs that I'm currently working towards. So I'll kind of like switch my mindset like that. But yeah, you just kind of have to like roll with it because it is very rewarding. It has become my career on accident. I never expected this in ever, so it's kind of crazy, but I'm super grateful because even like like I was saying, like I think it was 2 weeks ago, I went to Washington and I got the opportunity, kind of like what we used to do with the Vegan Strong team, educate a crowd of people that are not vegan, but they were so eager to learn. They were excited to learn. And it was a crowd of all women bodybuilders. And they just wanted to learn how you hit your protein on a vegan diet. And I was just so grateful to be there and take it all in because usually I'm talking to a vegan audience. So I was like, wow, 10 years ago, this would have never happened. So I'm just so grateful for the opportunity. And this is my why, so it just anchors everything that I do. So it doesn't matter how I train because I love it, even though it's not the ideal way I would like to train. I find so much reward in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a lot in common that way with, like for me with writing. Sometimes there's things that I want to write about, but as a writer, you can't think about that. You have to think about how the audience benefits from the words you put on a page. And that matters because that has the opportunity to influence lots of people, and animals too. It could save countless lives. Just as if you're able to connect with a few of those, even just a handful of those female non-vegan competitors who decide they're just going to start eating plants now, they could save 100 to 300 animal lives per year. And then the people they influence are, hundreds more, then thousands more. And then this trickle effect. And then you reach someone who has a large following, who has lots of influence. We see it all the time in the celebrity world when they go plant-based because of somebody's inspiration, or they go vegan because of somebody's inspiration, they can save millions of lives. So there is that some of that. We're flexible in the way that we pursue something because of what the audience, or in this case, judges or what a federation is looking for, but it amplifies our actual powerful message. So I do want to hear kind of like what the day in the life of a bikini pro athlete is, as far as like content creating and all this stuff to build your brand and obligations you have with apparel companies and all that. But I want to go back first and talk about, you do have an ebook you spent years working on, but you started as a chef way back when. Talk about that, because you used to decorate cakes and were in baking, and you went to a culinary school. Like, take us back there for a minute.
Oh my gosh, I'm like a jack of all trades. I like to do it all and I want to explore it all, learn it all. And oh my gosh, now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I did that too. So I went to the Living Like Culinary Institute in Fort Bragg, California, and kind of dabble into the raw food culinary world there. And it was just amazing because I got to learn so much of the basics that I now apply to cook foods. And it was just such an immersive experience. It was unbelievable. Around that time, I used to be the lead decorator for the Jacksonville area in Whole Foods market. So I was in charge of doing like all the decoration and just kind of like overlook like all bakery things. So I loved that. And then when I moved to Houston, I actually had like a little food delivery service, and I did cakes for people and I would go to their houses, do parties, and just kind of catered. I really, really loved the culinary world and like cooking for others and like just, I don't know, just I was such a creative, I'm still a creative person. I just now do it through YouTube, but and in a bigger scale. Like obviously I'm not cooking like for one person. Now I feel like I cook for the world and I teach them how to do it, you know? So it's such a rewarding, like, I don't know, job. I love it.
So how did that experience translate into what you just produced? So obviously it shaped some of the things that you did creatively. It shaped your own diet a little bit, but you just, I created an ebook. I love the name, by the way.
Thank you.
So tell us about that. Tell us about the ebook, because it just came out. I mean, we're talking like weeks ago or months ago. It just came out.
Yeah.
And how did that culinary experience shape that creative process of writing that book?
Yeah. So in school, they taught us everything from how to like write a recipe, how to correctly write a recipe, how to do flavor balancing and all of those things. So even though I was learning for raw foods and how to make those taste like cook, I could apply all of these things to cook foods. So I feel like it just elevated my cooking even more. And I just released a cookbook called Fit Vegan Kitchen, and it's a high protein vegan cookbook. It took me 4 years. It probably didn't need to take that long, but I was in the middle of competing. And, you know, when you're in such a demanding sport, sometimes you just have to put things on pause. And as you know, you kind of have to let the creative juices flow, and you know, when they flow, take advantage, and when they do not flow, you just put it on pause. So I just really wanted to make something really special, and it's digital cookbook, so it's all online, and it's interactive too, because over the years I've been able to create YouTube videos for certain of the recipes, so you can click on those, and it's really cool. It syncs with iBooks, so it's perfect, and it makes it really easy, like for people to save like their favorite recipes or click on the video links and watch. So yeah, it was a labor of love, and I just really wanted to make something that wasn't there. Like it was a gap that I was trying to fill for myself in the vegan community, because I always seen like, whenever somebody says like, oh, high protein, they'll add beans. You know, we all know beans have some protein, but it's mostly a carbohydrate with a protein. So I wanted to teach people and actually share with them other ingredients, you know, have them explore other things that they haven't explored, and easier ways to hit their protein on a vegan diet that wasn't just through beans. There are some bean recipes in my book, but I try to keep them to a minimum just so people could have a lot of fun in the kitchen. Something really big for me was making recipes that are really easy and that all had an image, because I don't know about you, Robert, but if there's a recipe that doesn't have an image, I will not do it. So I wanted everything to have beautiful images that I took myself, and yeah, just kind of inspire people to just get in the kitchen and, you know, meet those protein goals if that's what they want to do.
That's awesome. And I was taking some notes, so I didn't hear. Did you already say the name of your book?
Yes, Fit Vegan Kitchen.
Okay, awesome. So someone had a question here. You mentioned protein. Obviously, protein is a bigger part of a fitness person's lifestyle. We have to admit that, even though we know that most of us reach our protein goals, especially if we reach our calorie goals. But in the fitness world, protein is accentuated a little bit more. It's focused on, and for good reason. I mean, you're not sitting in a chair or on a couch or in a non-active lifestyle. You're in the gym, damaging muscle tissues, tearing muscle fibers in order to rebuild them, repair them, grow them, make them stronger, more robust, more resilient, all of that. So do you have a favorite protein powder, protein supplement, protein source? What's your kind of go-to in that category, especially supplement? Because you already talked about seitan and tofu and all that.
Yeah, definitely seitan is my favorite. I mean, luckily I don't have any gluten intolerance, so I just party with that. But pea protein from Live Body is what I use. I love them, and it's my favorite brand for protein powder. So I use that only on occasion, to be completely honest. Like I said, for my breakfast mainly, to put it on like my protein coffee or put it in my oatmeals. But I like to get the majority of my protein sources, or the majority of my protein through actual food sources versus supplement, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I want to ask you maybe a controversial question. It's becoming more open right now in bodybuilding. In fact, I was at the LA Fit Expo where your husband George was there. I talked with Jay Cutler, and he actually brought it up to me. We just one-on-one conversation about like steroids and stuff like that. And then I talked to Sean Ray, who's been really outspoken about steroids and bodybuilding, because so many bodybuilders have died. And Jay talked to me about that too, because a bunch of guys we both knew 20 years ago, 10 years ago have since passed, mostly in their 40s. And so people ask questions all the time. And I go to these events, the Olympia, I see these, like, for men and women alike, they want to know, like, what's real and what's not. Are the glutes real? Are the biceps real? And I'm not saying on you, but I'm saying in that sport, especially as a natural athlete like you are, and as many of our friends are, Tori Washington and others, vegan, all natural, drug-free. How do you compete in a sport that, we have to be honest, at the highest level is very widely known that there's a lot of steroids, drugs, different implants in different areas and all this stuff. And how do you rise above that and try to promote a more natural way of living in a very unnatural sport?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I myself think about this all the time, because I'm like, am I crazy for even trying,
Right.
I am a natural athlete in a federation that is not very natural. I would say in the IFBB Pro League, at the level that I am, there's like, I can count the girls and I know them. All right. It's in one hand.
Right.
There's very few of us. But it's important for me to be that representation. It's really important not just to be the representation as a vegan athlete, but as a natural athlete. I take it, I don't know, I'm just very passionate about it, because I don't know if you remember, in 2021, I think it was, there were over 30 deaths in bodybuilding. And all related to drug uses. Obviously, these are people that are using them at an extreme level, and it doesn't need to get there. And I don't judge anybody, and I don't really care, at the end of the day. But it's important for me to at least be that representation, to show that there is some hope out there, that you can do it in a natural way. And bikini, luckily, you can achieve that body naturally. It's just there's some genetic outliers, and I'll be completely honest, I am one of them. I have great genetics, but I also know how hard I work, and you can achieve that body. It's just going to take a lot longer, especially the way that division has grown. I've taken, like I said, I had to take a 2-year building season, 2 years. to come back and bring something that's going to be competitive in the stage right now. And that was something that I was willing to do, but I understand that not a lot of people want to do that. Some people just, want to go the steroid route, and that is okay too, if that's their choice, but they need to be educated more on it. And I hope that girls don't just jump the gun on that, because there are some really long-term side effects that are really terrible for you. So I just hope that with me being up there, with Tori Washington being up there, it inspires others to just stay natty, or stay natty for as long as possible, basically. So
yeah, well, I'm glad you addressed that, and it is a difficult question, and I was actually really surprised that even someone, Jay Cutler, for those who don't know, is basically, he's to some degree almost like the Michael Jordan of bodybuilding. He's one of the greatest of all time. He won the Olympia 4 times. He was runner-up 6 times. I guess he's more the LeBron James then, because LeBron James won 4 and was runner-up at 6, I think, or something like that. But he's one of the best ever. But we were having a serious conversation of some our friends who have passed away at age 40, and it's too bad, all just to be on Muscle magazine covers and to get some fame quickly and some money quickly, and to be gone at age 43. It is sad. And so I do appreciate so much people like you and Tori, not only natural, but you're very much like whole food, vegan, and animal rights driven. Like you care about animals, you care about the environment, you care about your own health, and the ability and implications that you have to uplift and inspire others, to show, hey, there is a way to do this. And you can even make a living at it. You can make a name for yourself. You can be on magazine covers, and you can, you can get opportunities to speak around the world. And you and Tori have done that at the highest level. And I'm so impressed by that. And so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inspiring me, because if it wasn't for you, who knows if we would have been here.
Well, thank you for that. But I really do. I appreciate the hard work that you put into to take it at a pro level, and to represent the vegan lifestyle, and not just a plant-based diet, but obviously, I'm an animal rights vegan guy, and that's just my roots. That's my why, my reason. I won't ever change that. And so it just makes me appreciate your approach that much more, because it's multi-layered, it's multifaceted. It's to create real change and systemic change, and look at animals differently, look at food differently, look at what's possible, like in your sport, in Tori's sport, and my background, whatever. And so I thank you for that. I know that you create a lot of content. You said you're kind of what you eat in a day, very, very popular. Obviously, when you have, what is considered one of the best physiques in the world, people want to how can I eat like that, to look like that? Genetics obviously play a role, hard work plays a role. But what's a day in the life besides eating and training? Writing, recipe creation, video creation, modeling outfits. You get a lot going on.
Yeah. Trello is my best friend. It's kind of like I don't even know what to call it. It's an app, and it organizes everything, and it puts everything in boxes, and you can label it. And I live with that every single day, open in my computer. So I put all the content, all the travel, all the things that I need to get done in a month, I put it in there, and I just label it off in sections. And with that, I take my planner and I strategize my month, my weeks, my days. When I'm telling you, everything is planned to the T, and every hour on the hour is taken, it's every single day. So I couldn't live without my planners, honestly. So that's what keeps me organized with everything. But basically, on a regular week, so Mondays are my busiest day because it's my biggest training day. So that day, I know I'll have a good chunk of it. It'll be at the gym. So when I wake up, because I am in competition prep, I have these little habits that I check off in the morning. So I'll be doing vacuums. I don't know if anybody knows what those are, but they're core control, breathing practices. These help me just hold my core when I'm on stage and holding those poses that are really demanding. It's a workout to hold. So I do that in the morning. I practice posing for 20 to 30 minutes in the morning. Then I have my coffee, my breakfast, and get ready for the day. So I'll go in my planner, see what I have to get done around my workout schedule. So have my breakfast, go and train for those 2 hours, come back home, eat, kind of like think about, okay, what do I have energy now for? Because after that first day is like a lot on my body, and I'm usually pretty beat after my first training session. So I'll do, if I have content creation days, I'll schedule those like on my Fridays and Sundays, which are my rest days. And those days I'll do as much content as I can. And that it could be like sponsor posts or like sponsor work, because I do work with companies that help facilitate me getting on stage. They're the ones that pay everything. And if it wasn't for them, I couldn't be doing what I love to do, which is being up there and just spreading my message. So I have to like, you know, do those things. And if I have any recipes, I'll usually do those on Sundays, because on Sunday is meal prep Sunday. So I have like a little series that I like to call Meal Prep Sundays, and I'll show people how I bulk style meal prep. And if I have any specific recipes like a protein muffin or something like that that I want to share, I'll film it on that day and then post that on the following week. But basically that's kind of like how my week structures goes. And yeah, like everything from posting schedules and things like that are also scheduled in, especially now because I have a my prep series, which is how I started my YouTube channel back in 2017. It was with a prep series. So I brought that back for season 5. It is super popular. People love following the journey. And I have people that are not even into competition prep, but they just love, you know, watching the journey of me being on stage and doing all of that and the process that goes into it. So I kind of like remove the curtain and I show everything, the good, the bad, the highs, the lows, everything in between, what it takes for me to get on stage. So I try to make it very educational, and I sneak in all my vegan content in there, and I call it the Vegan Bikini Prep series. And yeah, it just documents everything. So we cover things from meal prep, vegan lifestyle, bodybuilding, even the things like if you want to get on stage, I'll cover just hair, makeup, things like that for going on stage, cruelty-free makeup, and I'll just cover it all really. And I'll just try to like make sure that I'm educating people as much as I can through that series. And it's not just like a personal development series, but I could do both, you know, kind of simultaneously. So it's really cool.
Well, I think it's fascinating these days that that we can have these really careers through social media. I mean, you and Chef AJ are doing that, and others, where you build up a following because you're creating content. You create content that people are interested in. You have a genuine desire to help people and to inspire and motivate people and to facilitate that and answer questions and engage with an audience and do the things that allow you to, like you said, have companies that will help support your endeavors, including financially or and sometimes significantly financially, with so much travel and lodging and airfare and supply, you know, all the stuff that goes into this. And I know it's
not cheap at all.
right. I know.
Not cheap. So you need all the help, like all the help I can get really helps. Because yeah, it is a lot.
Right. No, absolutely. And I think what you're doing too is that you're carrying that vegan flag with you. There are very few people, I wish there were more, of course, who are in the professional athlete space who reach a large audience and kind of wave that flag and represent the lifestyle where everyone knows, like, wow, look at their accomplishments. They did that fueled by plants, you know, in a compassionate and kind way. So I certainly thank you for that. Because you have a planner, you know that we are running short on time here, the next 5 or 6, 7 minutes. I do want to ask a question that was asked in the chat. Maybe you have some insight or input here, and then we'll maybe wrap up with some of your goals for 2023, since we're still early in the year. But have you ever struggled with weight or body issues? And do you have any advice for especially maybe women who do? You're obviously in a sport being judged on. You're in a small bikini. You're being judged on your appearance. what's that like psychologically? And have you struggled with that? And what's your advice for others?
Absolutely. I feel like everybody in the bodybuilding world, if they're saying no, they're lying. So it is such a big thing. And body dysmorphia, especially when you reach those levels of leanness that the body just doesn't want to be at, they look incredible. You feel like trash on the inside. I never sugarcoat it. You feel like trash on the inside. They look amazing. And the thing is, people, they applaud you for being there. They cheer you on for being there. And it looks amazing, but it's only for that purpose, to get on stage. All right. And I feel like when you come off of that and you put any little bit of body fat, it really messes with your mind. And your perception of what a healthy body looks like completely changes. And some people kind of get wrapped up in that. And over the years, I've just, learned that that body just serves one purpose, and it's to get on stage so I can spread my message, right? And all I have to do is do my best to get there. But the body that I live in 90% of the time is my off-season body, and it is a healthy looking physique where I look strong, I feel my best, my gym sessions are just amazing. The pump that you get is amazing. So learning how to love my body in the off season and switching that mindset that this is not the one that I should love the most, really helped me. And it took years of practice, I'm not gonna lie. And the more and more you do it, the easier it gets. And, I feel like taking this long off season where I was really able to live in this body for a long time, I was like, man, like it does so much good for me. And, I don't know if you've seen the trend, muscle mommy being thrown around. Like now being strong is like what girls are aiming for. And I am so excited about this because looking strong, feeling healthy is like what's cool now, So it was kind of bittersweet starting prep because I know I have to get small and shredded for getting on stage, but I was like, man, like I'm really enjoying this right now. So it takes some practice, but you have to like get excited for other things. If your weight is changing, get excited to get stronger at the gym and your body will follow. Get excited to, fuel your body properly and it'll follow. But if you're constantly in your head, not, just kind of beating yourself down, it's going to show.
Yeah. Those are the psychological aspects of bodybuilding are some of the hardest.
Yeah.
That's a full separate conversation in itself that could go for an hour about the mental ups and downs of being comfortable in your own skin, being comfortable looking different than you did the last time somebody saw you and having them react to you in that way. Oh, you're skinnier than you were before, or oh, you're heavier than you were before. You're not as muscular. You don't look the way that I thought you did, or you don't look like the way you do on the internet. And there's so much, I imagine, even more difficult for women than it is for men. And I've certainly had my share of that in the 25 years I've been doing this. I want to wrap up with a few things, including a few questions on from the audience here that Chef AJ is sharing with me. Number one, what are some of your goals for 2023? Obviously, competition season. How many do you typically do in a year, and are they mostly in the U.S. or do you go to other countries to compete? What does that look like? And then, if you could also just give the name of your book again, where people can get it. I think it's directly on your website, but if you can, clarify some of that stuff, where people could find your images or videos on YouTube, social media, those kind of things as we wrap up.
Absolutely. So before I forget, so my cookbook is Fit Vegan Kitchen, and you can find it at fitveganchef.com. That's my website. And right there, that's the landing page. You can see it there. I also have my other cookbook, which is Puerto Vegan, which is a all Puerto Rican cuisine vegan cookbook. So if you want to like explore that, I either sell them separately or in a bundle. And then my social medias on Instagram is Fit Vegan Chef, and here on YouTube, Natalie Matthews Fit Vegan Chef. And so my 2023 goals are definitely to give it my best shot and try to aim to qualify for the Olympia, which is the biggest stage in the world. yeah, it's been a goal of mine. I got some points back in 2019, but every single year you got to restart and try again. They don't roll over, especially now the rules have changed. So I have to win a show in order to qualify. So I'm going to give it my best shot. I mean, I've been training for this moment for 7 years now. So I'm really, really excited to give it my all and make everybody proud. And if I don't make it, because I'm very realistic too, if I don't make it, at least bringing my very best on stage and hopefully can inspire others to adopt a more plant-based lifestyle. And I also, I want to travel more. So the way that I'm going to go about this competition season is that for 2 whole months, once I am stage lean, is what we call the stage shreds. Once my body's conditioned, I'm going to go for 2 months, just as many shows as my body allows me to, and go in and go out. So I'm hoping anywhere from April to June. That's kind of my time frame. As a natural athlete, I have to be very careful with how long I stay that small, because then I start losing a lot of muscle. So that's why I'm picking just 2 months and then reverse dieting. Then there's this show that's the only tested natural show in the IFBB, and it's around November. And I really want to try for that one because I've never done it. I mean, something has always come up. And then the year that I wanted to do it was the pandemic year. So something has always happened that's gotten in the way of me doing it. Tori has been able to go and do it and done amazing at that show. So I really that's my ultimate one. So hopefully once I reverse diet after my 2-month season, I can reevaluate and see if I can bring something better, because that's really important for me. If I'm just going to show up the same and not look improved, I'm not going to waste my time. It's really important for me to be at my best up there, because I feel like I have so much on the line. So I don't want to give anybody an excuse to say oh, that's why, because she's vegan, So for me, bringing my best is important. So if everything goes right, that's how I can finish my season. And yeah, that's kind of my big plan for this year. Last year, it was all about George. We kind of like taking turns. So it was his year to compete. He does CrossFit. So now it's my year and he's kind of taking the back seat.
Well, it was awesome seeing you at the Mr. America, because you're normally the star. Not only I'm maybe projecting this dynamic here, but you're kind of the star in your relationship, but also the star in the vegan movement. And it was so cool to see you cheering him on and taking videos and photos. And it was just, I don't know, I thought that was really cool. Here's one of the most famous vegan athletes, one of the most successful in the sport of bodybuilding. And she's here as a supporter and spectator, not only her husband, but the whole team. So that was really cool to see you.
I was so proud of everyone. Everybody did such an amazing job. And I hope it could get bigger and bigger every year, because that was really cool to watch.
Yeah. I know we rode back to the airport together, me, you, and George, back to Philly, and talked about the event. That was the Mr. America with the plant-built team that Giacomo and Danny from Vegan Proteins created. I want to thank some of the comments here. Colleen, thank you for your question. Daria, thank you for your question. And Rohana says, OMG, I love her. She was the one that showed me that you could compete. Love her. Me and my hubby love her so much. So Rohana, thank you. I'm sure Natalie is touched by that. I know you've had a big impact. Yeah. Thank you, Rohana, and Daria and Colleen and others who provided questions today. And thank you, Chef AJ, for relaying some of those questions. And Natalie, thanks for sharing your journey, your experiences, your expertise, covering some difficult and controversial topics in this crazy sport that somehow you and I both fell in love with.
I know.
And
what's wrong with us?
Yeah, I know. But I think you've got a long and bright career ahead. I look forward to watching that and cheering you on. And I also want to thank you for being a part of my book, The Plant-Based Athlete, and thanks for all you do in the movement. I want to remind people quickly that I am here in Seattle right now for the grand opening of Next Level Burger. And that's relevant because if all goes as planned, the CEO of Next Level Burger, which is an all vegan restaurant chain with 10 locations in 6 states, should be my next guest. for Vegan Conversations next month. I'll see him this weekend to confirm that. But I'm here in Seattle. I'm going to go spread the good word about this grand opening. Natalie Matthews, Fit Vegan Chef, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you both for having me. Thank you, Chef AJ, for being so patient.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to get to know you. You're precious. You're beautiful. I have one question. Is there any way to look like you without putting in any effort whatsoever?
Thank you.
You're really wonderful. And I'd love for you to send me the what I call the show notes, because people were asking if you can provide them. They can actually just click it and then get to your social media page, buy your book, those kind of things.
Okay. Do you want me to send it to that email?
Yeah, I'll send you an email right after, because we love having those, because that's how people will find out more about you.
Perfect. I will.
Absolutely. I can't believe that I used to live near you, but I live in Northern California now. We could have met. Darn.
Man, I didn't realize you were over here.
Yeah, up until a few years ago, yeah, Southern California. So that's.
And we almost all met at the Vegan Leadership Conference, but Natalie was competing that weekend in Florida in May of 2017 or 2019. But yeah, you were going to be there and you had to go compete somewhere, probably do well and placed high at that event, but we missed you at that leadership conference that Chef AJ and I were at.
I remember.
So maybe the next one.
Yes.
Maybe the next one.
Well, thank you so much. And Robert, you're just a great interviewer. I love that I get to just sit here and watch your show, and I look forward to your next guest.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
It's wonderful.
Thank you, Robert. You did great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was worried about my internet connection here. My computer is stacked up on copies of my signed books, and I have construction going on outside the window, but look, I'm not sweating too much.
No, you did great. Thank you so much.
Thank
you both.
And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back in 2 hours when I have a fabulous guest, an almost 100-year-old Loma Linda physician, Dr. John Scharfenberg, who was the professor of Dr. Hans Diehl. You must come back in 2